What? Her words finally penetrated his subconscious and his fantasy world melted away. He'd been thinking aloud, and she'd misinterpreted his words. She thought he was interested in her. And why wouldn't she? She was most men's idea of a fantasy woman, all soft curves and blonde hair with a mouth as pink and tempting as sugar icing. There had been a time when he would have been interested himself, but that time seemed like an age away. His wife had tamed that side of him, the wild, restless side that had driven him to rip through life taking what he wanted. But now she was gone, and he had no one to please but himself, and invariably he didn't even manage that. Denied any sort of internal peace or personal satisfaction, he channeled all his emotions into his work. His writing came first. At his lowest point, it had saved him, which had made the fear that he might have lost it forever all the more acute. But he hadn't lost it. His gift had simply been lying dormant, waiting to be reawakened, and this woman had done that. The relief was profound. It was like a drowning man discovering the life preserver he'd thought he'd lost bobbing in the water right next to him. He grabbed it and hung on, determined not to sink back down beneath the murky water. His mind wouldn't stop racing. Was that his murderer's motivation? Had she lost someone and was intent on revenge? Or was she a psychopath with no conscience or emotion, someone incapable of empathy who used her looks as a trap? If there had been a notebook and pen in hand, he would have started scribbling right there. For the first time in months, he felt an almost overwhelming urge and impatience to open his laptop. He wanted to sit down and write. He wanted to write and write until the book was finished. He could feel the idea growing inside him. His mind was like a dry riverbed after a flood, replenished, drenched with ideas. Finally, after months of waiting for inspiration, he'd found his murderer. He thought she was perfect? His reaction was unexpected given everything she knew about his life. Over the many slices of cake she'd shared with his grandmother, she'd discovered that Lucas Blade had shown no interest in dating since he'd lost his wife 3 years ago, despite the repeated attempts by various women to engage his attention. His life was a shadowy mystery, a private wasteland of grief and hard work. He wrote, he participated in whatever international book tours were required of him, he spoke, he signed books. In between the forced public appearances, he shut himself away. He displayed all the signs of a man who was going through the motions. He'd deflected his grandmother's less than subtle attempts to introduce him to suitable women, all of which made it all the more surprising that he was looking at her as if she was the answer to his dreams. She wasn't convinced he was the answer to hers, although there was no arguing that he was outrageously good-looking in a rough, buyer beware type of way. Was it insane to be attracted to someone who had just proved he could crush her like a bug? Having already discovered his strength, it surprised her that he was capable of the gentleness he was showing now as he slowly stroked her face with skilled fingers. But it wasn't his touch that turned her knees to water. It was the raw hunger she saw in his eyes. "You really think I'm perfect?" The hunger was replaced by caution. "You have perfect bone structure." Perfect bone structure? She'd been told she had nice hair. She knew her figure was good. She would have added a few inches to her height if she'd had a choice, but apart from that, there wasn't much about herself she'd change. No one had ever mentioned her bones before. He stared at her from every angle until Eva grew more and more uncomfortable. Lucas Blade was a mega-successful writer with an international reputation and a global audience of fans, but that didn't change the fact that he was basically a stranger surrounded by an aura of dangerous tension. He prowled rather than walked, glowered rather than smiled, and right now he was studying her as if he was a predator and she was his next victim. His words rang in her head. You never know just by looking.